Hey everybody, Carl Schoof here from CreativeCodingClub.com, and today I'm excited to partner with GSAP and CodeDrops to bring you 7 tips to help you enhance your GSAP workflow and bring big results to your GSAP animations. I've got loads of demos for you to explore so you can get your hands on and really see how the code works, and with GSAP now being completely free, this is a great time to dive deeper. Let's get started. Let's start with split text masking. I'm splitting my heading 1 text into characters, and I'm animating each character along the y-axis based on 100% of its height with a slight stagger. That gives us this animation right here. Very nice. Now historically, to add a masking effect, we would have to wrap my heading 1 in an outer div and apply overflow hidden to it. However, with the new split text, I can specify a mask property and set the value to characters. And now you'll see the mask effect in action. Each character is hidden below its bounding box, causing that masking effect. Now this is all well and good and works fine, but I want to point out that when we set up our code like this, each individual character will be wrapped in its own div with overflow clip. Let's go ahead and inspect, and you'll see that we have our original heading 1 tag, and inside of this we have all of these nested divs. This first div here has overflow set to clip, and when we open it up, you'll see that inside is another div that has the first character S. Moving on down, the next div here again has overflow clip, and inside of it we have the P div. Now I know the DOM looks a bit messy with all those inline styles, so let's take a look at this simplified version. The heading 1 tag is being split into all these individual characters that have their own wrapper divs, okay? Now the string split text masking contains 17 characters, so if you wrap each of those in a div, you're going to get 34 divs created, which may be a bit much. So let me just show you a better way. So in addition to splitting by characters, we're also going to add lines. And then I'm going to set the mask type to lines, and here you'll get the exact same animation but with a much cleaner DOM structure. As you can see here, our heading 1 has a div here with overflow clip, and that wraps around the line div, and inside the line div you have all those characters wrapped in their own divs, but they are not double wrapped as before. Again, the simplified representation shows the line wrapper, the line div, and then each individual character. With those same 17 characters, we're only going to get 19 divs created. So the takeaway here is that when you're doing a character by character animation, also break into lines and use lines as the mask. It'll give you a much cleaner DOM in the end. Next tip, setting stagger direction. In this example here, you'll notice that the stagger text is a little bit different color than the word direction. I just did that to show you that with split text, you can nest span tags and other tags inside of the elements that are being split. With this animation here, it's going to start out animating in left to right from the bottom, and then it's going to leave left to right going up. Watching it in real time, it's going to look like this. And it's very nice. As you'll see in the timeline here, the first tween animates in from a y% of 100, which pulls it up, and the stagger amount is 0.05. If we want to specify a stagger direction, we're going to switch over to the object syntax. So I'm just going to delete the 0.05 and paste in this object here. The each value means that there will be 0.05 seconds between the start of each character, but I've set a from value here to center, which means that it's going to animate in from the center. And there it is. Woo! To fancy things up for the exiting animation, I'm just going to paste in that same stagger animation, and for the from value, I'm going to say edges, which means it's going to start from the left and right. And then we get that. So here you'll see that we're animating in from the center, that's where it starts, and then out from the edges towards the center, and they all move up. To help illustrate all the different values that we have for the from value, I created this interactive demo for you which shows you the different values, their animations, and the code. I love random because we get this nice new random effect every time I click, and it doesn't require any crazy calculations, math, or code. So the next time you build a stagger, remember, you have all these different options to add some spice to your animations. Next tip, using gsap.utils.wrap to apply values from an array to multiple elements. In this example here, I've split Taste the Rainbow, and I want to use this array of colors to colorize each character. To do that, I'm going to use a gsap.set. The target, just like an animation, is going to be split.cars, and for the color value, I'm going to tap into gsap.utils.wrap and pass in my colors array. And there you have a wonderful rainbow of colors applied to each of the characters. And you'll notice that we go green, yellow, pink, sky, blue, and then we wrap back to the beginning of the array with green, yellow, pink, blue, and wrap again. So that's where the name wrap comes from. To show you how wrap can be used in an animation, I'm going to uncomment this code that I have down here, and here we have just a very basic stagger. Very much like what we've seen before. You'll notice that each of those characters animates in from the bottom as it fades in. Not too shabby, but what I want to do is alternate the direction from which each character animates. So to do that, instead of having Y50 here, I'm again going to do a gsap.utils.wrap and pass in my own array of -50 and +50. And now you'll see they come in from alternating directions. One more time. There you go. I also created this demo for you where you can see these different pill shapes sort of dance around with all these different effects. We have a single wrapper div with a bunch of divs inside, which I'm calling pills, okay? Let me just open up the JavaScript here. And what you can see here is that we have a timeline with a number of different sequenced animations. In most of them, I'm combining gsap.utils.wrap with a stagger direction. So this first tween here, let's rewind back to the beginning, is going to animate in from opposing Y values as we saw, but we're going to stagger from the center. And I just love these interesting designs we get sort of halfway through. Once they come into position, the next one is going to use wrap with the background color, changing the background color of half of them, sending half of them to one Y direction, and also alternating the scale. So you'll see here that half of them are going to get lighter and taller as they move up. The others are going to shrink, and then we go through a few more tweens where we do things with rotation. We again bring them back to center. Ooh. And then they're going to do this fun little thing here where some of them get really small. And then you get this beautiful design, which I don't know, how would you do that? Well, you'll notice the animation is coming in from the sides, so what you can do is just scroll through and see, oh, which one's coming in from the edges? This one right here, and then we're going to finish up right back at the normal state. So I'm not going to go through this line by line, but I suggest that you watch this a few times, scrub through, and try to match the animations that you see with the code on the right here. And of course, it's all going to go in order. So hopefully you see now the power of mixing gsap.utils.wrap with this stagger direction. You get these really playful animations that look much more complicated than they actually are. Using GSAP's random string. In this example here, I have an SVG with a bunch of rectangles in the top left-hand corner. You'll see that I have this group with a class of boxes and then a bunch of rectangle elements. Over in the JavaScript code, we're selecting all of those rectangles with the constant boxes. Here, the timeline code is animating all of the boxes to random X and Y values. I'm multiplying the random by 450 so that they have plenty of room to spread out inside the grid. If I play this animation, you'll see that all of the boxes go to some random number. If I want each box to go to its own random number, I could use an arrow function like this, which means each target in the targets array will get its own random value. And now you can see they all spread out. Every time I replay the animation, they'll go to the same random values. However, to save us some trouble, we can use GSAP's random string, which would look like this. What this does is it tells GSAP to tap into gsap.utils.random behind the scenes. The next time I run, you're going to see that we get the same results where each individual box goes to its own random value. If I want each of the boxes to sit perfectly inside of one of the grid cells, I could force this random number to be in increments of 50, which is the size of the boxes and the cells. And there you go. Each box now goes to a random value between 0 and 450 at 50 pixel increments. Another fun thing we can do is randomly choose an item from an array, as I'll do here for the fill color. And look at that, we now get random colors applied to each one of the elements. It's really amazing what you can do with such little code, and we're going to take this a step further in the next tip, using repeat refresh to re-evaluate tween values on repeat. In this example, I have another SVG over here that has a number of little circles or balls. In the timeline, which is set to repeat infinitely, we're starting off with a set which is going to randomize the scale of each one of those balls and reset its Y and X values. The next tween takes those balls and animates them up along the Y axis with a little bit of a stagger, and each one is going to repeat, meaning they're going to go up and down. And that animation is going to look like this, where we sort of get this fountain effect of these circles going up and down. I can click to pause, and now I'm going to activate this line here, which randomizes the X value, -200 to the left to +200 on the right, which gives us this sort of spread along the X axis. Now, if you pay attention to this animation, when it repeats, it always uses the same random values. So keep an eye on the yellow circle or ball. It's always doing this motion. It's always starting in the same place and going to the same place. And all of the balls are doing the same thing. But now what I'm going to do is add repeat refresh true to the timeline. And what that means is that on each repeat, we're going to record new random scale values and new random X values. So now the effect will never be the same. If you keep an eye on that yellow ball, you'll see that each time it animates, it's a different scale, it's in a different position, and all the balls are totally randomized. What's really cool here is that we've created this totally random particle effect with just a single timeline. We're not using any loops, we're not using any recursive functions. It's just a timeline with a simple set and 2 stagger tweens. And you get this totally randomized, wonderful effect. I just love it. Next tip, tweening the time scale of an animation. For this tip, I'm using a fork of the previous tip's demo. You may have noticed that there were times where I could just click to pause and click to unpause. Well, that was all done with this code right here, where we're saying that whenever we click, we're going to set the paused state of the timeline to the inverse of its current paused state. If its paused state is true, we're going to set it to false and vice versa. And this simple line gives me a very handy toggling of the animation's paused state. But what I want to show you is that it is a bit abrupt. It happens as soon as I click, and this next tip is going to show you how we can sort of smooth it out. First, it's important to know that the time scale is a factor of the animation's playback speed. A time scale of 0.5 is going to play at half speed, and a time scale of 2 is going to play at double speed. So in my example, I can write tl.timescale5, and now the animation is going to play 5 times as fast. Likewise, if I change that to be 0.1, it's going to play at 1/10 of its normal speed, and you will see that it is very, very slow. Now, time scale is literally a property of the timeline, and since it's a numeric value, that means it can be animated. So what I'm going to do is get rid of this, and I'm going to show you that when I click, I'm going to create a gsap.toTween that tells the timeline to animate its time scale to 0 over the course of 1 second. And now you'll see that my animation is playing, but when I click, it slows down progressively. Now clicking again is only going to tween the timescale to 0 again, so there's nothing to see. However, to turn this into a toggle, I'm just going to paste in a chunk of code here, and now you'll see that we can click to slow down and click to speed up. Click to slow down and click to speed up again. I'll turn it off and let's just do a quick walkthrough of this code. We're going to create this isPlaying variable to track the playback state, and when the file first load, isPlaying will be true because the animation is playing. On each click, we're going to see if isPlaying is true, and if it is, well then we're going to slow down the playback speed to 0 by tweening the timescale to 0. If isPlaying is false, we're going to speed it back up to a timescale of 1. Each time we click, we're going to be toggling the value of isPlaying. So if it was at first true, once this code runs, it's going to be false for the next click. And now we have this silky smooth unpause and pause that you would never want to code without. Simply elegant. Tip 7, GSDevTools, markers and animation menu. We've been using GSDevTools throughout this entire video to control our animations. And as I've said many times, I love just scrubbing through and finding neat parts of the animation that I can study at my own pace. However, GSDevTools has other features that often go unnoticed. We're going to start by talking about in marker and out marker that allow us to specify where our animations are going to start and end so that we can create little loops to watch on repeat as many times as we like. But what's convenient about this is that if I just want to troubleshoot maybe the end of my animation, I can bring the start marker all the way over to maybe right about here. And let's say that I wanted to add something fancy to the last piece of animation. Well, I can go down into my code here, and for the last set of tweens that I have here, I can just add something like rotation 360. And now the next time I run, the animation is going to start right where that in marker was. I don't have to sit and wait for all of the animation to play. I can even go so far as to refresh the entire page, and GSDevTools is still going to remember this last little bit of the animation that I'm testing. So for an animation that's over 5 seconds long, it's great to be able to just skip to the part I want to see and not have to watch the entire animation play all the way through just to see a little bit of boom, rotation at the end. While we're here, I want to draw your attention to the animation menu, which only contains the global timeline right now. The reason for that is because when we're calling gsdevtools.create, we're not passing in an animation with an ID. I'm going to tell GSDevTools to set its animation to my TL timeline. Now you'll see that in the animation menu, it says no ID. In order to give an animation an ID, I would go to the timeline constructor way up at the top of my code, and inside of here where I've defined the defaults, I can add an ID property, and let me just pass in the string of fancy. And now you'll see that the name fancy shows up in this menu. Now this menu is really only useful if I have multiple animations that I want to navigate through. So now that you see how to set the ID, let's jump into a more complex example. I created this animation here to celebrate GSAP's announcement that all of their plugins were free for everyone. This was huge news shortly after GSAP was acquired by Webflow. It now opened up GSAP for so many more users because there were no costs, recurring payments, file sharing concerns, private repositories, licensing confusion, no more restrictions, and an emoji explosion. And I used that opportunity to advertise this sale on my GSAP training, which is still going on today. But that aside, this example is great for illustrating the power of the animation menu because this animation is 26 seconds long. And if I were to work on the emoji section and want to fine tune it, I would have to watch maybe 20 seconds or so of animation every time I tested. But now what I can do is loop this section and watch it to see how exactly the emoji sort of push the text out of the way, how far they go up, how they spread to the side, and of course my favorite thing to do is scrub through slowly and investigate. I can jump right over to the first logo section and see exactly what's happening. It's all happening very quickly. Well, we reveal that outline top to bottom, we fill in with purple text, and then it sort of sinks back just a little bit, and then boom, explodes forward. So it's those subtle details that GSAP's friendly syntax allows you to absolutely nail and get right. Taking a quick look at the code, I have multiple timelines like the logo timeline that has an ID of logo. Scrolling down, there's a for Annie, which is the for everyone animation. We have plugins free, again with an ID, and all of these timelines have IDs so that they are easily accessed through that menu. Going all the way down the line, you're going to see that I eventually create a main timeline with the ID of full add. And inside of main, I'm adding all of those different timelines with some subtle overlapping using the position parameter. Down here, I'm telling GSDevTools that it's going to use the main animation, and that's why the top level animation is full add. I really hope you've enjoyed all of these little tips I've shown you today, and if you want to learn how to make animations like these, head on over to Creative Coding Club, check out my courses. I'm going to walk you through everything I know about GSAP, and right now, thanks to CodeDrops putting this article out, I am going to extend my GSAP for Everyone sale. So all the courses for only 49 bucks. You cannot beat that, but that price is only going to be guaranteed through September 15th. So swing on by creativecodingclub.com and discover the joy of animating with code.